I do want to have this caveat because I think the biggest mistake human beings make, and this is a bold statement, but I believe it's true. And I ask this to my clients on every call. Where are you chasing pleasure at the expense of fulfillment? Oreos are delicious. They're not fulfilling. You're never going to eat Oreos and be like, wow, I'm really glad I did that. It's just not the way it works. Just like you're never going to go, I really wish I went to the gym less. Remember how I said virtue is the universal language? You're never going to regret, I really wish I was less kind to my loved ones. Oh, I really wish I didn't go to the gym so much. Oh, I really wish that I took my health less seriously. You either have the discipline today to stay true to your own promises you've made to yourself, or you have the pain of regret tomorrow.
Many people want to navigate life with peace and joy, but struggle to connect to their intuition. They find themselves overwhelmed, burned out, and frustrated. My name is Francesca Phillips, and I'm obsessed with spirituality and psychology and how the two can intersect to help you live a successful and intuitive life. I believe each of us can accomplish amazing things through balance and healthy habits instead of burnout. Consider this your go-to resource for where spiritual wellness and mindful productivity meets practical wisdom. If you're craving positivity and want to know how to find the answers within instead of searching endlessly without, then you're in the right place. Get ready to feel supported and inspired. This is the Good Space Podcast. You're listening to the Good Space Podcast, episode number 28, Why Manifesting is for Everyone and How to Start It Now with Alan Lazaros. Before we dive in, I want to give my warm appreciation to our reviewer of the week, Ashley Bird, and they say, Francesca makes finding mindfulness seem accessible and worthwhile. Always happy to hear what she's learning and working on in her own life. She's fantastic. Thank you so much, Ashley Bird, for sharing your kind words. I'm so happy you're part of the Good Space community. If you want to be highlighted in an upcoming episode and help further the mission of the Good Space, make sure to subscribe and give us a review on Apple Podcasts so I can then highlight your review in an upcoming episode. It only takes a minute. You can pause the episode and come right back. Make sure to screenshot this episode on your phone and tag us on your Instagram story at @FindYourGoodSpace, #TheGoodSpace, to let me know that you're joining in today, as you know that I love to share those screenshots on our stories too. Welcome to episode 28 of the Good Space Podcast. Today we're going to talk about why manifesting is for everyone and how to do it now with a pretty incredible guy. After losing his father in a tragic accident when he was 2, then being involved in a near-fatal accident himself at 26, Alan Lazaros questioned everything. After not feeling like he was living a life true to himself, he decided to change forever. He went from engineer and MBA graduate to a professional speaker, peak performance business coach and consultant, and the co-host of the Hyperconscious podcast. Alan believes that life is about choices and is a big advocate of mastering your systems and designing a magnificent life on your own terms. Welcome to the Good Space Podcast, Alan.
What an introduction. Thank you so much. I'm really, really happy to be here. I'm going to bring the energy and hopefully some awesome insights and honestly, some vulnerability too.
I'm excited. Well, thank you for being here. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today?
So there's kind of the short form, the mid form, and the long form story. I'll try to give you the short to middle, but I'm 31 years old, and so it's not easy to encapsulate that many years in a very short form. So understand first and foremost that this is kind of like milestones, but it doesn't encapsulate the whole thing. But if you're out there, you have a story just like mine, and I think it's important to provide context. Okay, so my story starts very, very young. So I'm 2 years old, and as you mentioned in the introduction, my father had passed away in a car accident. Now, at the time, my father is 28 years old. And I say that I lost something very near and dear. And it's interesting because before this episode, I was doing breath work, and I've started doing it regularly. And when I do breath work, one of the things that I end up crying about, and if you've ever done breath work, you know that a lot of times emotions come pouring out of you because it's a very specific sort of healing. But what I end up crying about most, it ends up being like kind of my dad and just feeling kind of the loss of that, but healing from it as well. But while I did lose something that I'll in certain ways never get back, I did gain something else. And so what I gained was I was raised by my mother and my sister. So I had an older sister who was 3 years older than me, and I had my mom, and both of them were incredibly nurturing, to me. So I had two guides still, kind of two parents. My sister definitely took the other role quite a bit. And in hindsight, I was actually at dinner with her this past weekend, and just she remembers everything from that. And she was 6 when he passed away. So that hit her a lot harder than me. So that's where my story starts, right? And so I think there's already a lesson in that, which is every loss actually comes with a gain if you're looking for it. And that will be a rolling theme throughout this story. So fast forward, I'm like probably 9 or 10 years old, and we're driving past WPI. And WPI, for those of you who don't know, is sort of like a mini MIT. It's a college, Worcester Polytechnic Institute, and there's a sign at the bottom of the hill. I can remember it. I can visualize it right now. And we're driving past it, and at the time, my uncle Merle worked as the track and field coach. As a matter of fact, he's since passed, and the track and field is actually named after him. It's called Norcross Field. But at the time, I'm 10 years old, and my mom said, Alan, you're really smart. Life is about choices, and if you're really smart and you go to WPI, you'll have choices. And so she was, at the time, I didn't really know this, but now looking back, she was planting a dream sort of in my heart. And so that's one thing that my mom always taught me. She said, life is about choices. And I'm a little kid when she was saying this. And it's funny because my sister and I used to joke about how, well, now we joke, how we never got punished. We got lectured. So instead of like go to your room and us like wondering what we did wrong, my mom would like come in and it's like, oh, not another lecture. But now in hindsight, like she was always trying to teach us why we were in trouble so that we would understand, rather, which is so huge. And that's obviously what we do now as podcasters, is like help people understand. So it's kind of cool, even though I hated it at the time. So I'm 10 years old. We're driving past this, and my mom taught me life is about choices. She said, Alan, you can be a CEO or you can be a farmer. Right. and I was young. She was trying to explain it. One time I told this story and someone's like, my aunt is a farmer and they work so hard. I'm like, this is nothing against farmers. So if you're out there listening right now, this is just my mom trying to explain it. She said, Alan, if you aim high, you'll have choices. So if you're smart enough and you're a CEO, you wake up one day and decide you want to go farm, you can do that. But if you start as a farmer, you can't necessarily wake up one day and suddenly be a CEO. So she said, aim high and you'll have choices. And that always freaking stuck with me. I just got chills talking about it. Okay, so fast forward a little bit. I'm in 8th grade and my mom basically took a risk. She said, I give you permission to take 8th grade off if you'll promise me to get straight A's in high school. Now, not off. I still legally had to go to school in the,
I was like, wait a second.
Right? Yeah, right. But like, if you look at my academic career, it's hilarious because it's like all A's and B's, mostly A's, a couple B's. Then it's like D's, C's, and like B's. And then in high school, straight A's. I got 1 B+ in all of high school. I kid you not.
What did you do in 8th grade?
I just took it off, kind of.
Like you just played outside, or like?
I didn't care about academics. For the only time in my entire life, I just didn't care about academics. Because my mom said, if you take that off, like, and you promise me you'll work hard in high school, which was a huge risk, by the way, because that could have gone right off the rails. So she really trusted me. And so the President's Award that she wanted me to get, that she said, you should get this, is you have to get a 95 or above GPA out of 100, every report card for all of high school. You can't miss a single time. And so that was like really, really challenging. And I have a plaque like signed by George Bush and all that. But the point is like, she was right. So now we're fast forward and we're doing my college essay together and she's helping me with it. And I'm applying to WPI. I get in, I go for electrical and computer engineering. I graduate with high distinction. I go into the corporate world. Now, I do a lot of soul searching and a lot of job hopping. So I started a company called Campus Libre with some buddies. I worked for a company called Oz Development. I worked for Tyco Safety Products. I worked for a company called Sensata Technologies, which used to be Texas Instruments. I worked for iRobot for a time. Eventually, I landed a company called Cognex. Now, also within that, I went back for my MBA because I realized working as an engineer that I was actually really good with people and that I love people, and that designing circuits behind a desk was not my jam. So fast forward, I'm at Cognex. Now, Cognex's motto is work hard, play hard. I used to say work hard, play harder. Now, throughout this story, one thing that I haven't yet mentioned is this seed of vice that I didn't realize would grow into a really negative thing. So when I was 14, my sister, as you know, was like 17, 18, and she would have parties at our house, and she always hung out with an older crowd. So I got exposed to partying, drinking from a very young age. And it was definitely an encouraged thing in the environment I grew up in, and that is what it is. So I had fun, lots of fun, all that through high school, then went to college, was in a fraternity, did the drinking thing. Then I went into corporate, and then I was in sales. And for those of you in sales, it's about making a lot of money, helping a lot of people, and you do end up drinking. It's a part of the culture. And I'm not saying it's a good or bad thing. I'm just saying that it definitely got the best of me. So fast forward, I'm 26 years old, and I'm making nearly 200 grand a year. I'm 25 and a half, 26 years old. And I have on the outside what other people would deem as success, which is I had a beautiful girlfriend named Courtney at the time. I had, more than I had, basically well over a 6-figure income. I had tons of friends. I was friends with all my corporate friends. Then I was friends with all my friends from college, and I was friends from all my friends from high school. And it's like I was kind of like everybody's best friend in a certain way. I remember I used to think to myself, like, I'm going to be at like 20 weddings. I'm going to be like the best man at like 20 weddings. And it's all, circling back. So here I am in New Hampshire, right, with my little cousin. And this is where it all shifted for me. I come to a fork in the road. It's a dark winter night, and it was that horrible winter where horrible potholes in New England, and the road was supposed to stay right. I thought it stayed left. So I was looking down at the GPS. I didn't know where I was, and I look up and I saw the brightest lights I'd ever seen. It was the scariest moment of my life, hands down. So I end up on the wrong side of the road, entirely my fault. And I see this lift-kitted truck and these bright, bright lights. And I literally remember thinking in that moment, like, this is it for me. And so if you're out there right now and maybe you've had a life or death scenario or a death of a loved one or a death of a pet, like, it shakes your snow globe. Everything you think it messes with you. I genuinely had that moment of, oh my God, this is it. And I don't, there's no exaggeration. It's inexplicable. I could try. I'm not even going to try unless you've been there and experienced it. Fortunately, I was driving a 2004 Volkswagen Passat. I used to call it the Tank. So it's a steel trap German engineered car, and both airbags went off. So he hurt his knee. I hurt my face on the airbag, and fortunately we were okay. And in my speeches, I show this car because this is not a fender bender. I mean, this car was completely totaled. And now circle back. So I've seen the pictures of my dad's car. Okay. And every time I look at the picture of my car, it looks very, very similar. And so I remember at the beginning of this story, and I told you I'd give you the middle version, but this might be the long version. So at the beginning of this story, every loss comes with a gain. One of the other gains that I realize now as an adult is that most people have an intellectual understanding that we will all die one day. For me, it's never been intellectual. It's been an emotional understanding because I heard my whole life stories about John. And what I found most interesting is that no one ever talks about how he died. They all talk about how he lived. And so for me, that's like something that like I live by every single day, and legacy is my one word. And just seeing the impact he had on others is something that never has left me and honestly never will. And my mom even says, like, Holden, which is the little town that he grew up in, like, had to be kind of shut down that day because 600 people came to his funeral. And he had such an impact on so many people. And so I always heard these stories, and I got to witness years and years and years later, my business coach, Aunt Joanne, which is his sister, like, she still to this day attributes him as her greatest why power, like the impact he had on her. And she's done unbelievable things. First woman founded financial firm in New York City, like incredible things. And so never underestimate the impact you can have on someone else. It's unreal. And so here I am, 26 years old. My father passed away in a car accident when he was 28. And I'm sitting in an armchair drinking whiskey, questioning everything. And I was just like, oh my God, like I had so much regret. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I just had so much regret because I say this quote that's simple but powerful. Basically, you cannot see the stars during the day. They're always there, but sometimes it takes the darkness to see clearly that which you simply could dot within the light. Think about the last time you were in deep emotional pain. Like, I guarantee you it woke you up to some stuff you weren't looking for before. So for me, this moment, this pain woke me up to two particular things. Number one is Tony Robbins' TED Talk, which is just absolute fire. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah, I believe I saw it like a few years ago, but I mean, yeah, it's like like so many people talk about it and it's amazing.
It's life-changing. It's nothing short of life-changing. And so that woke me up to like what's possible for me and how I understand myself. Second thing, even more powerful, Bronnie Ware, an Australian woman, wrote a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. Have you heard of it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes. So that book has changed my life so much, in fact, that to this moment, I have a flashcard in my pocket with all 5 regrets on it. Now, the number one regret of the dying, so just a little background. So she worked in hospice for 8 years with the terminally ill. And she thought her job was to take care of them, but her real job, she realized, was to listen. And she kept hearing, I wish, I wish, I wish. All these regrets, common patterns, she started to notice. They're all having the same regrets. And we've since interviewed Bronnie, which is so cool. Episode 202, what a dream come true, which, by the way, 4 years later, she's like, Alan, what I love about you is that you're persistent, but you're also patient. You have a good balance and you're respectful. I was like, yes. I was such a fanboy on that episode. But anyways, so the number one regret of the dying is I wish I had lived a life true to myself and not what others expected of me. Now, what I love about what my mom did is she planted dreams in my heart. I remember I was told, Alan, you're good at math. Engineers are good at math. Engineers make a lot of money. Okay, if you're out there listening, that is not enough reasons to choose an entire life, right? But for me, I was a little kid, like, perfect. And so I think at some point we all have to grow up and decide to design our own life. And so for me, the car accident woke me up. 2 questions I asked myself. Number 1, how courageously did I fight for what I believe in? And number 2, how fiercely and openly did I love? And so the third regret of the dying is I wish I had the courage to express my true feelings. Those 2 are the big ones because it's so hard to tell someone you love them because you're so afraid to lose love, and it's so hard to stay true to yourself because sometimes what's true to yourself, you lose friends or they don't understand or whatever. And so now I reverse engineer regret every single day. And I have a journaling habit that I did even this morning before this podcast where I ask myself and I rate myself from 0 to 10 on each of these things. I wish I had lived a life true to myself and not what others expected of me. The second one is I wish I hadn't worked so hard on the wrong things. The third one is I wish I had the courage to express my true feelings. The fourth one is I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. And the fifth one is I wish I had let myself be happier, allowed myself to be happier. And so now I live a regret-free life, which is awesome. But honestly, I think one of the reasons why I'm so dedicated to that is because of how I was so on autopilot before that car accident. And for me, that was my ultimate wake-up call. And so we talk a lot about PTSD. For a long time, I was claustrophobic. Double yellow lines scared me. I was getting pulled over because I was so far on the right side of the road because I was so afraid to be on the wrong side again. And that was a real thing. Unfortunately, the cops were very kind. But we don't talk enough about post-traumatic growth. So if you're out there right now, my soliloquy is, okay, no matter how hard your past has been, no matter how hard your present is, you have a spotless future. Spotless. It's absolutely spotless. You can start making a new choice right now that will change everything. For me, it took me 5 years to quit drinking, but that choice changed everything. And that to me is the most exciting thing in the world. So life is about choices. When you're in emotional pain, which by the way, emotional pain is guaranteed, what you do about it is not. You have a choice every time you're in emotional pain. Do I develop a virtue or do I escape into a vice? Drugs, alcohol, Netflix. And we've all been guilty of both. But virtue is a universal language. If you open the door for an old lady who's struggling, I don't care what background, what culture, what color, any of that, I'm going to see that as virtuous because virtue is universal. No matter what culture, no matter where you grew up, there's some part of the human spirit that recognizes like that's a good thing. And the question becomes, are you being virtuous based on your own standards and dreams and goals? Or are you not?
Wow. I'm like, yeah, there's so much that I want to unpack in that. And it's so powerful. And the thing that came to my mind is something I'm reading in Radical Compassion by Tara Brach. I think that's how you say her last name. But she talks about this concept of shedding your old skin. And there's like some ancient story or like it's some mystical story. But basically this character goes to the river every day, sheds their skin, renews and nurtures themselves and comes back. And then one day that character comes back without their old skin and the everyone around her freaks out and they're like, I don't know who this person is. I don't recognize her. And so she goes back and puts the skin on just to keep them comfortable. And so it kind of reminds me of what you said about, am I, making choices out of what I love and who's true to me? Or is it because of what people expect of me or how they see me or the person that I've been this whole time? And I think that's a powerful lesson. So other than experiencing something as traumatic as a car accident, hopefully not everyone needs to experience something like that in order to have that be their wake up moment. Not saying it's bad that it was, because I'm sure for you, it's super powerful. And like maybe someone listening is like, I need to have something crazy happen in order to know what you know. So do you agree with that? Do you not agree with that? What are your thoughts?
What a question. What a great question. So I have a difficult time explaining this. So from the moment of that car accident until now, I've been just religious about personal development, studying it, practicing it, podcasting, speaking, all that, right? Reading books, like all the time. And this is the one concept I have a really hard time explaining, because I think it comes down to your relationship to pain and understanding that pain and suffering are two different things. Because the truth of the matter is, and I'm not on here to first and foremost, no one else is going to change your life for you. No one else can get in shape for you. No one else can solve your financial challenges, right? And another thing I'll say is Mark Twain talks about how you can never be unhealthy enough to make someone else healthy. You can never be broke enough to make someone else wealthy. So it really is on you. And a lot of the things I'm going to say on this show might be hardcore, but it's because I care. And because, this whole like 6-minute abs, like quick fix culture, it really is bamboozling and really, really mystifying the truth of what it actually takes to harness your own greatness. So to answer your original question, do you need to have some crazy life traumatic incident to change your life? Of course not. But I will say that emotional pain, I believe, is the thing we're most afraid of, and also the greatest fuel. So emotions move mountains. And so one of the reasons I do breath work, and I was legitimately crying earlier today. So I do breath work. We had Samantha Skelly on the podcast, and she at the tail end had us do 6 minutes of breath work, and she put on these perfect songs. For some reason, it's just like, I literally have yet to listen to it without crying. It's crazy, but it's healing. And so I was in the shower listening to this earlier, and I remember like feeling the pain. And then every single time, to go back to your snake analogy, I do feel like an old part of me heals, but I still have the drive to set that new standard for my future. Now, you heard the very short to mid-long version of my story, but 31 years encapsulated in, 15 minutes or however long that was does not encapsulate the whole thing. And so one thing that I would say to answer this question, my past, in all honesty, was extremely, extremely painful. And I won't necessarily go into the reasons why, because I don't want to necessarily incriminate anyone. And I think my loved ones did an awesome job, all things considered. But one thing that I have noticed, Francesca, is that my drive is something that some people don't have, because I don't know if they've gone to the darkest places or been forced into the darkest places. And so what I will say is this: your adversity is your advantage as long as you have a growth mindset. And do you have to have some tragic car accident? No. But you do have to face the pain if you want to have drive, I think. I wish it wasn't that way. I didn't make the rules. But one thing I will say, I coach, so I have 10 clients, right? I have all the data. We have what's called peak performance tracking. We create something called the Daily Dozen. And it's 12 things they've told me they want to do every day. And theoretically, any of us can do 12 things a day, right? Like logically, it's like, that's no problem. How many people actually do it? Zero. And including me. I had one 113% day. How do you get above 100%, Alan? Well, I went above and beyond my own system, and I did more than 12 that day. But usually my days are around averaging, I think last week my average was 76.7% or something like that. Our whole hyperconscious team, literally I send a report of like, this is how productive you were. These are your wins. These are your bottlenecks. This is how you can improve. Like it's how we all get better every day based on what they've told me they want to do, not just for the business, but for their own fulfillment, right? So meditation is on there. Breath work is on there, that kind of stuff. But here's the thing. What I have noticed is that sometimes I'm playing with a tool other people don't have. because my pain goes so deep that my drive is ridiculous. And so I have seen some people, and I don't think this is a bad thing necessarily, but some people, I'll use Bronnie Ware as an example. So Bronnie Ware is a huge hero of mine. She's literally changed the world. Her book has changed my life more than almost anything, if not anything. And it's still changing my life every day when I reverse engineer regret. But I remember after that interview, I talked to Kevin and I said, you know what's interesting, man? Bronnie Ware doesn't strike me as that ambitious. And I said, you know what's kind of cool though? She changed the world with her gentleness. And I said, Kev, that's a breakthrough for me because I know that I'm not going to change the world with my gentleness, but maybe I'll change the world with my tenacity. And so if you're out there right now, what is your relationship to your pain? And how do you use it rather than let it use you?
Ooh, I got chills on that one. At first, I was embarrassed to ask that question because I think the strongest souls are the ones that have to deal with things like you are dealing, like that you've dealt with. And I feel like that says a lot about your strength. And so I was like, oh, I hope that didn't come out wrong. But the way you just ended that, I was like, that's why I needed to ask that question. And it just made me like realize that something that my coach told me, which was when you think back to a traumatic event or like an experience that you thought was wrong or didn't work out the way you wanted to, or whatever you want to call it, would you have learned the lesson that you learned harder or faster any other way? And so I feel like what you went through made you learn harder and faster the value of life, the value of what your voice, you know, how it's going to impact people, the value of doing work that you love. You learn that much quicker than those people on their deathbeds wishing that they had stayed true to themselves. So in a way, that's the power of pain and using it, like you said, the way that you can use it in a positive way, in a growth mindset. And so talk to me more about that idea of gentleness versus tenacity, like how you can use it and show up in different ways and how that ties into like more of a spiritual aspect.
Oh my goodness, that's a synchronistic question too. So I love the way you just articulated all that, by the way. I think we like to believe that like, yeah, I can totally grow and be comfortable. Oh yeah. No, you can't. I'm sorry. But if your workouts are easy, you're not getting better. It is what it is. I didn't make the rules. I'm sorry. Okay. So here we go. So this is about, you talked about manifesting at top. And I think that when we hear the word manifestation and my engineering brain goes, whoa, woo woo, like, what does that even mean? Like, you know, Newton's third law, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. It's like, no, you got to brute force it to get results. And I think that anyone listening can too. Maybe you already have. So I have a framework that me and my client co-created called the PMES system. So I believe, and so does he, that the human experience has 4 primary facets: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And so I tell this story on stage about manifestation and the purple elephant. And people always go like, what does that mean? Okay, so I want you to imagine, so close your eyes and imagine a purple elephant. Okay, this purple elephant is a cartoon elephant and it's wearing a cowboy hat and it's holding a double barrel shotgun. Okay. Now, each of us in our imagination has a different version of that purple elephant. Okay, that's the spiritual. Okay, that's where everything starts. Then we emotionalize it. This is my purple elephant. And we make it detailed in our own unique way based on our own references and our own experiences. Okay, now it's emotionalized. Now M, mental. Now I'm going to strategize about how to actually create it. I'm going to get a paper, I'm going to get crayons, and I'm going to draw this thing. P, now I'm going to take physical action, and I'm actually going to draw it out. Now I could show you a picture of this purple elephant that once only existed in my imagination, and I now manifested it into reality. You ever hear of Barney the purple dinosaur? That only existed in someone's imagination at one point. And so I just articulated manifestation in a very tangible way that people get like, oh, it's not actually that woo-woo. Think about, okay, right now, when you were a kid, you probably dreamt of having your own apartment, and you probably dreamt of having your own car and having your license, and you probably dreamt of going to college. And how many of those things have you literally manifested that at one point just existed in your imagination? You know, if you're married, you probably, you know, imagined that first, And then it manifested into reality. Why? Because you emotionalized it, you strategized about how to make it happen, and then you took physical action to actually make that happen. And it's a cycle. And so to answer your original question about how do we reconcile this, what was the original question again? I think I got off track.
Now that you talked about the intellectual and whatnot, like I know I've talked to people who are lawyers or like accountants and they're like, oh, manifesting sounds great. But when you bring in the idea of thought and energy, no, that's not how it works. So I guess I'm kind of curious how you mesh the two and how you can include the spiritual.
I hope this lands for people. So you've heard of yin and yang.
Yin and yang is just like the feminine, the masculine. It's like, yeah, the difference between the.
Okay, perfect. So yin and yang, masculine, feminine. Now, these are energies that we all have, okay? You've probably heard that quote from Wedding Crashers, it's the soul's recognition of its counterpoint in another. So powerful. That, I believe we're physically, I believe that we're attracted to whoever's going to complement our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual self. Because we're all trying to be whole, but in an interesting way, we're all not. It's this weird duality of I'm always perfect and always whole in this present moment while simultaneously striving for better and striving to be whole. And so I'll try to make this as tangible as I can. The physical and mental is the left hemisphere of the brain. That is the structured, disciplined, calculating, mathematical side of the brain. That's the engineer, okay? The other side is the warm, loving, intuitive, creative version. Now, physical and mental is the left hemisphere of the brain. In other words, taking massive action and strategizing up a storm. Those are the chess players of the world, okay? Then you've got the emotional and spiritual side, which is the creative, intuitive, loving, warm. So what I find fascinating is that we all have both. I just think we're a little bit overdeveloped. We're not balanced. And so I don't know if I like the word balance because I think we all have a unique version. Remember, circle back to Bronnie Ware. Bronnie Ware is far more emotional and spiritual than me by nature. Her true nature is genuinely a more feminine energy than mine. And that's why I said I'm not going to change the world with my gentleness.
Yeah. It's almost like you're on a spectrum.
Exactly.
Like you're just on a different part of the spectrum than she is.
Exactly. And so my version of centered is not as, like if I frolic in nature, I'll use my girlfriend as an example. She loves nature. I believe nature versus nurture, her nature is extremely feminine. Now, nurture-wise, she's developed a very strong masculine. She does Muay Thai. She's extremely ambitious, all that stuff. We all have both. The problem is we're not understanding how to fulfill both simultaneously. So if you're out there right now and this resonates with you, you're most likely more masculine, okay? You care about results far more than the process. When you go into anything, you're thinking about what are the outcomes I want to achieve more than the experience of the actual thing. So for me, it's like going to a coffee shop. I'm looking for the caffeine stimulant, and I don't really care what it tastes like as long as I get that stimulant. Someone else wants it to taste good, okay? So if you're out there right now and you care about success, you care about significance, you care about results, you care about progress, you care about discipline and consistency and structure, you are more masculine. And if none of that resonated, which it might not have, because I do think you're probably more feminine, which is okay. Okay, but if you're feminine, you're probably going to resonate with what I'm about to say. You love to have fun, unique experiences. You love to enjoy the process. You love to be in the present moment. You love to be warm and loving and intuitive and creative. Okay, none is wrong. And by the way, the whole world wants to tell everyone else that they're wrong. Your religion's wrong. My religion's wrong. No one's wrong or right. It's a different version of the human experience.
I think it's a really good point. And the funny thing is I actually obsessed over the masculine stuff for like a lot of years. And I'm just now like embracing more of the feminine. And so how can we feel comfortable meshing the two more? What does that even look like? Because I can already see people listening who are like, well, I want to achieve things and want to go after things, but I feel stressed and burned out and I don't know how to like balance. So it's like, what does that even look like trying to feel better and knowing who you are? Because I feel like even just knowing what I really like, because I have so many like voices and, beliefs and trainings from when I was growing up. And it's like, how do you even begin to see what's true for you?
Oh, this is so fire. And you can interrupt me literally at any time. This is your show, and I'm grateful that you did because it'll make the conversation more juicy. Striving and arriving. So I want you to think of way back in the day, human beings, right? Just think of, I believe personally that God's source, I believe that's nature. So I think nature is a true representation of our essence. And so it grows all our fingernails. It grows all the flowers. You know, you can call it infinite intelligence. You can call it the Tao. You can call it God. You can call it spirit. But either way, it's the source of energy that is beyond probably our human comprehension, that really does help everything flow, the tides, all that stuff. Okay. So think about hunter-gatherer days. And I've studied a lot of evolutionary psychology, but also just evolution in general. In hunter-gatherer days, the masculine would have to go out, hunt, and kill food, and it had to be goal-oriented. If it saw a deer, it needed to decide how and strategize, how do I take actions to go kill that deer and bring it back? Okay, that's the masculine. And by the way, females can do that too. So this is not male and female. So get rid of the label of male and female for a second. And this, by the way, is also why couples female, one's usually more masculine. Okay, it's a balance. You need both energies, exactly. So that's the masculine energy. Think about the feminine energy as the nurturing, like making the environment sustainable and good. So you have one hunter-gatherer, and then you have one is striving for more always. The other one is always trying to make the present moment more nurturing, if that makes sense. And we all have both. So if you're out there right now and making this tangible, there is a part of you that wants to strive for greatness. There's also a part of you that wants to be fully present and fully take in the experience of this moment. And honestly, and this is something that I have trouble with, the problem is in the personal development industry is that you've got the Tim Grovers who wrote the book Relentless, who coached Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan, who are entirely masculine perspective. And this is nothing against Eckhart Tolle. I like Eckhart, okay? Nothing against him, but he's all about the present moment. And the truth of the matter is that it's both simultaneously. There's a book called The Self-Made Billionaire Effect that has this one quote in it that literally, if people could understand this, I feel like it would change their life forever. One of the common patterns, they studied billionaires. One of the common patterns that they found, so Oprah Winfrey, if you're a hero of hers, she's a billionaire. So she was studied in this. Okay, love Oprah, sweetheart. So they studied that the most common pattern of a billionaire is that they can hold two seemingly opposing ideas in their consciousness simultaneously.
Can you tell us more about that?
Absolutely. So I struggle with this, but think about this, right? Light, dark, up, down, day, night, the seasons, like everything has, on one end, it's like consistency, structure, discipline for success, right? But on the other end, it's flowing, it's intuitive, it's creative, it's thought, it's meditation. The truth is it's both. And that problem is that we call it drive to 5. How do you find your unique center? I was doing breath work earlier. Guess what? Later tonight, I'm going to be in the gym with my headphones on, talking to no one. Me and my girlfriend do sign language in the gym. We don't even talk to each other. Like, it's me getting after it, right? And so that's the masculine. When I'm doing breath work alone, crying, that's the feminine. I'm expressing both.
Can you talk about breath work? Because I know you've mentioned it a few times, and I realized someone listening might be like, well, what does that look like? Is it because it's not quite meditation? So what is that in practice?
And again, this isn't me plugging my show or anything, but on episode 402, Samantha Skelly came on. It's the best I've ever seen of it. At the tail end of it, if you scroll all the way to the end, the last like 10 minutes, she takes you through this amazing thing. So breath work is the breath pattern that she uses that I've found the most effective is 2 huge inhales in and then 1 long one out. And then you just keep doing it over and over and over again. So picture someone who you witness smoke a cigarette, or maybe you've smoked a cigarette. You breathe super deeply. And a lot of, you're getting high on nicotine and that feels good, I guess. But it's also you're breathing deeply consistently and you wonder why it makes you feel good.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I never knew that.
And if you've ever smoked marijuana before, you hold it, right? You hold it and then you let it out. Imagine that, but with oxygen.
Wow. Yeah.
Right? Because the marijuana molecules are actually combined with the oxygen, and you're doing the same thing. Imagine that same idea of like the longer you hold it, the more you're going to feel the effects of the marijuana. And I don't smoke weed, but I know some people do. Do that with oxygen. So it's now, if you can do that, she does it for 6 minutes, I'm telling you. So the chakras will open up. My throat chakra opened up so much when I started doing this. And I realized that my body was holding on to so much pain in my throat because of some of the traumas in my past.
I just wanted to keep hearing more about how you said like, okay, the balance, like having both, but no, I mean, I just didn't want to miss that part because I was really excited to hear more.
No, I appreciate that. And I do think it's important to tell your listeners what I'm referencing. Because if I'm just, I remember I did a speech for the 7 to 11-year-olds. And I said the word commiserate. And Kevin's like, dude, no one knows what you're talking about, even on our show. Like, grow up, right? So, so anyways. All right. So if there's any words that you don't know, we'll try to clarify or look them up. But
it's hilarious because I actually taught a youth camp virtually this year on productivity. And,
nice.
And I gave like a little survey at the end to be like, what would you change? And some of them are like, you were talking about like business stuff. And I'm like 16 years old. And I'm like, what did I do to them?
Literally,
like,
right.
what was I thinking?
That's why at the very beginning, when we first got on here, I asked, who's your listener? Because I'm guilty of that too. I coached a 7 and 11-year-old and it was like, okay, what was I like when I was 11? Okay. It's difficult. Okay. So the original balance of yin and yang, masculine and feminine, trying to make this as tangible as possible. I think fulfillment is the tell-all. I think a lack of fulfillment is proof that you're outside of alignment with your highest spiritual self. Okay. So, for example, whenever I would drink, it would be fun. And yeah, there were a lot of positives, and pretending there weren't, I think, would be naive. But it never felt fulfilling to me. And so that's just for me. And if you drink, I'm not making this wrong for you. Only you know. So remember when I talked about physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual? I imagine someone who's in physical pain because they're not taking care of their health at all. Imagine someone who's mentally overstimulated. They're constantly, oh my God, I have a to-do list that's 8 miles long. And they're constantly like texts and news feeds and RSS feeds and Trump said this and Twitter and, Gmail and all this. Okay. Now imagine someone's in physical pain and overstimulated and in emotional pain. How is their spiritual, their intuition supposed to get through all that noise? And so to me, if you actually want to hear your intuition, which by the way, the car accident stopped my whole life, where I actually finally heard my intuition. So physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. Physical, mental is thought. Emotional is feeling. Spiritual is your intuition. If you have healthy feelings, in other words, you're in a healthy emotional state, and you have you ever been to a float tank?
No, but I've seen them on like shows and documentaries and stuff.
Okay, so I did a float tank once. What float tanks are is they're sensory deprivation. So you're in a float tank, you're in a dark tank with water that has very, very high saline content so that you actually float. And then you have earplugs in. And the reason why float tanks are so cool is that you turn off all of your sensory inputs. So smell, taste, hear, touch, and smell, taste, touch, taste. Good call. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm like, I don't.
Yeah, right. Taste. Yeah.
I know, it's like the slow delivery. Like, in case I'm wrong, stop me before I say the whole word.
Exactly. It's hilarious. So imagine shutting all those down, those sensory inputs, all that noise. Now all of a sudden you can hear your intuition. That's why your best thoughts come to you in the shower, because you're finally alone and you're finally not in the noisy. First of all, you're in a relaxed physical state because you're in warm water and you're breathing, right? You're mentally not that stimulated because finally you're away from your phone for 30 seconds, right? You're emotionally in probably a good place. And all of a sudden you have these intuitive thoughts. You have great ideas. My best ideas come to me in the shower, I'm telling you. So I think for someone out there, if you feel like you're unfulfilled in your masculine, you got to get after it. Do competitive stuff. Make sure it's healthy, but do some competitive shit. Compete with yourself. if you feel like your feminine is unfulfilled, you're going to need to do breath work or meditate or take a walk in nature or fill your life with something more fulfilling on that end. And I do want to have this caveat, because I think the biggest mistake human beings make, and this is a bold statement, but I believe it's true. And I ask this to my clients on every call: where are you chasing pleasure at the expense of fulfillment? Oreos are delicious. They're not fulfilling. You're never going to eat Oreos and be like, wow, I'm really glad I did that. It's just not the way it works. Just like you're never going to go, I really wish I went to the gym less. Remember how I said virtue is the universal language? You're never going to regret, I really wish I was less kind to my loved ones. Oh, I really wish I didn't go to the gym so much. Oh, I really wish that I took my health less seriously. You either have the discipline today to stay true to your own promises you've made to yourself, or you have the pain of regret tomorrow. And this circles back to your original question, when I got in that car accident and I had so much regret, I vowed never again. I'm never going to be this disappointed in my own choices again. And now go figure, I'm the choice guy. But that's true for everybody. Like, this is what I say on stages, and this will be and then I'll wrap it up here with this question anyways. If you had a friend who broke as many promises to you as you've broken to yourself, how much would you value that friendship? Really think about this for a second if you're out there listening. Why would Warren Buffett invest in a stock he didn't believe would grow? He wouldn't. So if you're not investing in yourself, it's because you don't believe in your own brighter future enough. You know why I'm willing to work 12 hours straight and not leave the room except to go to the bathroom? Because I believe in my own brighter future that much. And also, when I get better, everyone in my life gets better. I witness it. When I read books, I can tell my girlfriend about it. I can tell Kevin about it. Everyone around me elevates the moment I elevate. And I know that because I witnessed the effect we have on others, because when my father passed away, everyone still talks about him. He lives through them. It's unreal what we're capable of if we can just really get our shit together, pardon my French, and keep the promises we make to ourselves. You know, how many times have you said, I'm going to go to the gym every day, I'm going to exercise every day, and then you just don't? You know, I have a flashcard in my pocket. It says this one quote. I literally think about this every single day. There is someone in a hospital bed right now begging God for the opportunity that you have to make a difference. Like, that's part of why I was crying earlier, is because I was thinking about that little kid who felt insignificant and who had all these hardships, and like how like I didn't feel significant. I didn't feel like I mattered. And it's like I had teachers and I had people who really believed in me and who said, you can do it, you're smart. Like, and it's like, I just need to be that. I need to be that for other people, because there's some people out there right now that have no opportunities. They have no hope. And it's like, that little boy has become this man. The Rock at one point was just a little boy who was hopeless, who someone believed in. And now he's changed the freaking world. Oprah, same deal. Pregnant at 13, got an abortion, wanted to kill herself. Like, everyone out there, you have a story, and it's like, it's up to you. It's up to you. You can do it.
Oh, I really felt that. Yeah, that's just incredible. And it's almost like it's kind of selfish to not be the best person that you can be, because you're right. We have more impact on loved ones and friends, and just even opportunities with random strangers. Like, you can change lives without even realizing it. And it's like, it's time to realize it, and it's time to do that. And I'm reading The Seed of the Soul by Gary Zukav, and he talks about how if you don't nurture yourself, you could never possibly nurture someone else. If you don't love yourself, if you don't believe something about yourself, you would never be able to offer that to anyone else. And that just affirmed to me the truth of that. And if someone listening was like, okay, I'm ready to try, maybe I'm depressed, maybe I'm overwhelmed, what 2 to 3 things could they start now as a habit to get into that flow of aligning with themselves and choosing better for themselves?
One thing I want to reiterate is, right now you're seeing an extremely polished version of me, but you're not seeing me punching my car ceiling, calling a suicide hotline, hating my life, hating my job, and spending, I think it was like $50 a month for several months for how to overcome just depression. And so I just want to reiterate that, because it might seem on the surface like I'm so well developed or whatever, but the truth is it's the things here's what I'll say. My fitness coach, he's in way better shape than me, way stronger than me, just 6'4", absolute monster, 220, all muscle. Is he better at fitness than me? Sure. The truth though, I could say, oh, he has better genetics or all this stuff. Maybe he's in California, they have better food choices. No. He made better fitness decisions longer than I did. That's the truth. He made better choices in the fitness arena. If someone's wealthier than you, they made better financial decisions than you did. That's it. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So just remember,
it's possible.
you're seeing
like all of it's possible for you is what you're saying.
All of it's possible. Exactly. Thank you for that. And so to answer your original question, the small daily disciplines that make the biggest difference, what are 3? Number 1, you got to exercise every day. People don't like this. I was a fitness coach for a long time. They're like, don't you need a rest day? Stop worrying about rest days. You need to worry about training. Like, I'm sorry, but the human body was made to exercise every day. Like, I'm not
like
saying
intense, like I have to go 3 hours at the gym. Like
Exactly.
Okay.
I set my timer for 40 minutes in the parking lot. I was at the gym with my girlfriend last night at 8:00. And when that timer goes off, we finish our last set and we leave. 40 minutes a day. Okay. We started with cardio, walking uphill, and weight training. Most people are so focused on having the right routine and the right trainer and the right diet and the right this. What matters most is consistency. Get the train rolling and then make sure the train never stops. I vowed to myself when the gyms opened back up after COVID that I would never miss a day of exercise for the rest of my life as long as I'm physically capable. If you're grateful for your health, prove it. Prove it with your choices. You can do it. It can be a 20-minute walk. It can be a jog. It can be a HIIT training. It can be, a weight training regimen. Exercising every day, you're going to have better thoughts. You're going to be in a more resourceful state. You're going to be proud of yourself. You're going to be, your whole life's going to change. So that's one. Okay. What's another one? I would say feeding your mind. So every single day for the after that car accident, I found a video. My buddy Eddie Panero, he has a YouTube channel called Your World Within. Fire. Super inspiring. Like anyone who goes to that channel, it's like unreal. It's just like music plus motivational poems. It's fire. So he has his very first video he ever created, and this is funny because I now know him. He's like a close friend of mine. We just talked to him last week. But Ode to Excellence is a video. I swear to you, every day for the last 5.5 years since that car accident, I have woken up in the morning. I have never missed a day. Never. I listened to Ode to Excellence. It's a motivational compilation of his voice, and it's like 4 minutes long. Never missed a day. And there's several after that. If you go to my YouTube, there's Alan's morning mindset workout, or Alan's mindset workout is the playlist. I do it every morning. Even so, let's say I'm with my girlfriend and she brings Tucker, her little dog, up, and we have our nice little morning together. I don't immediately stop our conversation and put Ode to Excellence on with her, like trying to talk to me, right? But the moment I get in my car, I put it on. So it's the way I start my day after my, hang out with her or whatever. So I've never missed a day though, never. And so when you feed your mind something like Ode to Excellence, maybe what's your version of that? Every day it's like, okay, this is, and by the way, it's in the first person. It's a motivational poem. I am this, right? Okay, so feed your mind. Number 1, exercise your body. Number 2, feed your mind. These are simple. They will change your entire life. The third thing, and this one I think, I'm always trying to ask myself, like, what am I doing that I'm not telling people? Because I've been able to really transform my body and my life and all stuff, and that's great, whatever, but it's not about me. I'm doing something that I started finally telling people about. I have something called a purpose prayer. So I wear this around my neck. It's a true north. Remember I told you the North Star quote of like, you can't see the stars during the day. Okay. So every time I touch this, I think of 5 things I'm grateful for. My health is always number 1, Emilia. Number 2, my mother, my sister, and my mission. Every time I touch this, I do that. I stop whatever I'm doing every time, and I think of that. Now, I also have what's referred to as a purpose prayer. Okay. And I actually started sharing this publicly finally, even though this was really scary for me, because this is the closest thing to my heart. After that car accident, I wrote myself a purpose prayer. This is a letter from my highest self, my spiritual self, to my human self. And so I would be willing to recite it to you if you'd like. And this is something that I have never missed. I remember one time it was like 1 a.m. I woke up in a panic, like, oh my God, I didn't say my purpose prayer today. And I said it to myself, right? I won't miss. For the rest of my life, I'll say this every single day because it's a reminder of who I really am and who I really aspire to be, all in one.
Yeah. If you're willing to share it, we'd love to hear. Yeah.
I would love to. Okay. I remember the first time I shared it with my girlfriend, I like messed it up because I was so nervous and I was all red. But okay, here we go. So I and I alone am the keeper of my own happiness and self-worth. I shall not allow naysayers to sway me from my purpose, nor to deny me of my right to pursue a life well lived on my own terms. My every moment shall be spent in an effort to better the quality of myself and others, and to spread the utmost love and goodwill with every last breath that I take. I shall defend health and freedom with all haste, and put forth a forever and purposeful effort to balance out that which is clearly evil and malicious in this world. My mind, body, heart, and soul shall be one and of the greatest possible measure. I shall forever take steps to ensure that I always learn from the past, enjoy the present, and focus on a brighter future for all. For I, Alan Lazaros, will exit this world one day a better place. And so that I've recited to myself. Sometimes I scream it, sometimes I say it out loud, sometimes I say it in my own head. But every single day from the moment I got in that car accident. And that's one thing that guides me every day. And in the future, let's say all my dreams come true, blah, 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 shiny objects, books, bestsellers, podcasts, whatever. Okay, ignore all that nonsense. When they ask me, Alan, how did you do it? It's those moments by myself when I dedicated to myself who I decided to be. And then every single day, the choices I made were either aligned with that or they weren't. I'm getting the chills just talking about it. It's not up to anybody else. No one else told me I had a drinking problem. Nobody. Some people wish I still drink. Seriously. I knew that I wasn't maximizing my potential. I knew that I wasn't maximizing my contribution. And again, I'm getting fired up, but like, if you're out there right now, are you in integrity with your highest self or not? Are you fulfilled with your life or not? You can change it. You can do it. I got you. Like, they have you. They can reach out to you. They can reach out to me. You can find a mentor anywhere. Find someone who is living their dream and ask them for help. I guarantee you they're going to be pumped.
No, that's so great. That's so great. And I love to, the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, like that's such a great mental tool and acronym to keep in mind when you're wanting to create a life you love. Like start there, start with the spiritual, see how your emotional is, your mental and your physical. And I think that's a wonderful, simple way to get going on creating a life you love and aligning with your highest self. So Alan, thank you so much for sharing so much wisdom and just insights. And I feel like I could keep talking to you for like hours more. So yeah, I really, really appreciate that. If people want to find you, connect with you, where can they do that?
Francesca, this has been awesome. This has been really, really powerful. And I always get nervous when I share certain parts of myself, but the thing that you don't share and the vulnerability you don't share can't help anybody, And so thank you for helping me have a safe space to share for the longest time, for literally probably 5 years of the last 5.5. I kept that purpose prayer to myself and only my closest loved ones, and now I've just recently, that was the second time or maybe third time I've ever shared it publicly. And it's hard for me, but I know that it's comfort zone. Like I got to get out of my comfort zone. So if it can help somebody, I want to do it. Okay. So thank you for creating the safe space and encouraging me and supporting me and being, so affirming. So where can people find me? So if you Google my name, Alan Lazaros, so ALAN, Lazarus is LAZAROS. It's OS instead of US. The only other Alan Lazaros, it's actually Alan Lazaro, and he's from Germany. He doesn't have an online footprint. So anything that comes up will be me. I've accidentally emailed him many times. And you can reach out on Instagram. You can reach out on LinkedIn. You can reach out on Facebook. Those are the primary three that I use. And between me and my assistant, Amy, we literally get back to everybody. And here's the thing. Even if I can't help you, I know someone who can. I'm very blessed at this point to have interviewed hundreds of people. Like, we have a big and growing network. Like, if you're growth minded, which you are because you're listening to this, you most likely are in an environment that I would argue that at least 80% of people are not really striving for greater. And that's just the truth. So you're going to have to get around more growth-minded people in order to shed those old skins. And I know that we can help you do that. We also have a mastermind every Monday that you can join as well. But just reach out, and I guarantee I can help.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And we'll make sure to link everything in the show notes that you mentioned. So, all righty. Well, we'll talk soon. And again, thanks so much.
Thank you for listening, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Now it's time for an affirmation. I am open and non-resistant to attracting what's meant to be mine and releasing fully what isn't. If you found today's tips inspiring or thought-provoking, share it right now on social media and make sure to tag me at Francesca A. Phillips or at Find Your Good Space, and also weigh in the comment section at findyourgoodspace.com. You can find links in the show notes. And if you have a spiritual or mindfulness problem that you want me to unpack on an upcoming The Good Space episode, or an awesome manifesting story you want to share, give my podcast phone line a ring right now at 917-719-0867. Also, don't forget to download my free morning routine guide. It's what helped me reduce my anxiety, increase productivity, and so much more. The link to everything I mentioned is in the show notes. See you soon.